Hi guys, I thought I'd do a little video today on how AI can really help with making video games. There's a whole lot of technologies that have been released in the last few months or so that have really changed the entire landscape. And it's not just video games. If you've watched the news at all, you will have seen things like ChatGPT 3, DALL-E 2, things that are totally shaping the entire landscape for not just education and game making, but also just professionally. I think from what we can see here, basically the entire world, our entire culture is going to potentially change completely due to these advances in AI. But for today, I just want to limit the the scope of we're talking about just to game development, especially some of the stuff that we've done in the past, and see how this will basically aid making games moving forward. So the key things I wanted to cover off are as follows. So in the art space, there's some really amazing tools now that just allow you to type in what's called a prompt or just a regular English sentence, and then the AI will essentially create that art almost out of thin air. Not really out of thin air, but or it seems like it anyway. And anyone with a grasp, a minimum grasp of the English language, or whichever input language is used, can basically create some pretty astounding art. And if someone is an actual artist, then this empowers them so much more. But if you are starting out in your journey, or if you're a young kid, or you're an adult who doesn't have very many art skills, then some of these art AI will empower you to create art as if you had decades of experience. So the key tools we're going to talk about today are DALL-E 2, Midjourney, then we'll also talk about Stable Diffusion and Invoke AI. Now DALL-E 2 is probably the easiest one to get into. Midjourney is not that much more difficult as well, but it's probably one of the more popular ones at the moment. And then we'll talk about some of the text AI generation. It sounds boring, but it's so much more than that. Um, this may be something you've come across in the news as well, but Microsoft talked about releasing their new version of Internet Edge, their browser, which includes a chat inside, which is basically the AI. So you can ask it literally anything, and it will come up with some really, really good answers. The underlying technology is also used for another internet application called ChatGPT 3, which is also almost like a magic answering machine. You can ask it absolutely anything. You can request any kind of document, and it will produce something amazing. So that doesn't sound so interesting, but I'll have to show you a little bit later. You can ask it to write you a story, or an essay, or a poem, or even a song, and it will generate something based on what you input, and it can be like a couple of sentences or whatever, and it'll make it reasonably good. But even more exciting, it can create complete code for you. So let's say we're making a video game, and we didn't know how to make a bit of code to make an enemy shoot, or to control the flow of the gameplay and so forth. You can describe that in English, and it will create the entire system for you. Again, it doesn't seem that interesting now, but when I show you in a minute, it will absolutely blow you away. Aside from that, there are a lot of other tools. There's an absolute explosion of work being done in the AI space. There's stuff that creates music based on just plain English inputs. There's stuff that will simulate voices just from you typing a sentence in. It's like a real person is talking. This is just scratching the surface. There's an absolute explosion of tools, and I think the world as we know it this year is going to change radically. So it's great to learn these tools for game development, but also just in general. I believe this will change the entire way we work and the entire way we live moving forward. This is a massive stepping stone. So I thought I'd start with the simplest example, which is a program called DALL-E 2. I'm not going to go through step by step how you get registered and all of that for today. I'll do that in another lesson. I thought I'd just give you a quick overview across all the different tools just so you can see what the capabilities are. But if you want to register, you feel free to do so. You can basically go and do a Google search for DALL-E 2, which is DALLE2, and it'll be one of the first searches, if not the first search. So anyway, it's pretty simple. Looks like a Google search type thing. Um, you basically can type in whatever you want into here, anything you want. So I'm just going to look around the room for inspiration. A purple printer on a grassy landscape in the sunshine. So I'm just going to look around the room for inspiration, just to give you sort of an example. And I'll say, comma, an oil painting. So it's exactly what it sounds like. It's going to generate something very cool for me. Takes a couple of seconds. I'll probably cut this out. Oh, that was really quick. So you can see there already, there's four separate paintings of a printer sitting in a grassy sunshine, and it's done as an oil painting. So I can change this. I can say an anime cartoon. So the way that this works is that it has billions of images in its database, and the AI essentially has been trained on lots and lots of images, and so it's associated the wording to those images. So you can see here, just with a slight change, it's changed the entire style to an anime style. So you can see the possibilities. It's not like a simple Google search. This AI is actually drawing the stuff from scratch based on the database of billions of images. It actually comes up with this from word association. So it's absolutely amazing. You can basically generate anything. It's good for concept art, so from a game development point of view, you can do all sorts of things with it. You can come up with some ideas. Typically with concept art, you might do a little pencil sketch, but and then try and put together some idea to convey what the game is. But with this, you can actually get it closer to what it would actually look like in the actual game, rather than, in my case, I would be doing stick figures. And sure, they look fine, but this looks 20 times better as a big concept. And potentially you can use this for actual art in your game as well. You can use it for things like power-up icons, for example, or the cover image, or backgrounds even. There's just limitless possibilities. There's a lot of different methods of how this is being used at the moment. So this is DALL-E 2. This is probably the most simple one. Okay, now next, slightly up in the rungs of the ladder of complexity, is another tool called Midjourney. This is one of the most popular AI art tools out there at the moment. You can see here already, it works the same way. This is some of the little things that I've been putting in. So for example, here is a sprite sheet for a side-scrolling platformer where the main character is a cyberpunk cat, and I wanted it to be in the 8-bit style with a white background. So the reason why I want a white background is because I can use another tool, which I'll show you next time, where you can essentially remove the backgrounds and use these sprites directly inside a tool like Construct or even Unity. You can see here there's a few other examples as well of islands. I generated a bunch of islands, so yeah, these are fully usable. You can cut out the white backgrounds, slice out this art as PNGs, and you can use them. You can see here some planes and things. So that's sort of art. Here's something that could be used as a background. So I've said a cyberpunk man walking through the rain, something like that, in a pixel art style. So this is all sort of gamey type stuff at the moment. But here's another interesting one. A friend of mine made a request, and he said, put together Denzel Washington as the President of the United States in the future, cyberpunk anime style. So Denzel Washington is a very famous American actor, a very prestigious one, and you can see here. So the AI art, of course, this stuff is all work in progress at the moment. Some of these look more like him. This couple of these, not so much, but you can. Someone off the street who is well versed in American movies would probably recognize this as being Denzel Washington. But you can see it's put him into as an American president. You can see the American flag on his lapel there, and sort of moody noir cyberpunk type thing. So it has put that together. So that, yeah, here's another one. Another friend of mine put this one in. So Keanu Reeves surfing. So you can see there the face doesn't look exactly like Keanu Reeves, but you can tell it's his kind of features, the trademark beard and hairstyle, kind of facial structure. So it's work in progress, but it's getting pretty good. It's getting pretty good. Um, so I've used it for some concept art type things as well, which is pretty cool. Tried a few different experiments here. Tried to put my own photo in, which hasn't worked that well. These are pretty interesting. So this one here, slightly more complicated uh, inside the prompt. So I've said it's Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. So these are some pioneers within the computer industry who have shaped the way the entire computer hardware and software industry have played out. Absolute pioneers. So I said Steve Jobs and Bill Gates working on an 80s computer with a Cthulhu, which is it's basically a monster watching from a distance in the Mountains of Madness, which is a book based on Cthulhu. Anyway, there's a lot of descriptions in here, like hyperreal, realistic, large shot, etc., etc. So you can put all these interesting little descriptions in, which will shape how this looks. So rather than cartoony, this actually looks more photographic. You can still tell at the moment that it's computer generated. It's kind of a bit overly smooth in some areas, but cartoony. But if you look at it from far away, it does sort of look like a photo, especially the non-faces side of it. Yeah, the faces are still work in progress, but yeah. So it usually generates these in a couple of minutes. It's very, very quick. And I will show you one final thing. Oh, okay, so here's in the cartoon style retro. So same kind of thing, just very, very cool. But yeah, so I'll show you in another video next time how I used all the different parts for a game that I released on the Oculus Store recently. So this stuff is very, very exciting. So just typing in a sentence, you can use your imagination, that's all you need, and you can come up with any kind of art. And you don't need to actually have even picked up a pen before. It's amazing. So next I'll talk about Stable Diffusion. I'm not actually going to run it because it takes the explanation around it will take a little bit longer, and today's just an overview. So it's a little bit like DALL-E and Midjourney, but you need to install the program locally. There's a few things you have to do. But what the main difference here, and I'll explain it, is around the customizability. So with Midjourney and DALL-E 2, you can write lots of really wonderful prompts and things, but Stable Diffusion allows you to change lots of parameters. So you can see there's a bunch of sliders here. There's the things around the height and things. There's actually a lot more. Each of these tabs has so many more options. So it's just that you can customize the way that this image is created using Stable Diffusion. The other one called Invoke AI, I'll also show you next time rather than this video, is similar to that. But what it allows you to do is to start off with a tiny image, and then you can grow it out to a much bigger image, and you can use a similar prompting to basically create a bigger image. The AI will just fill it out for you, so you can make a really big image. We're going to move on to Internet Edge next, which is their default browser that comes with a new Windows machine. So Edge is compared to Google Chrome, which you probably use, or most people use Chrome. Only a small amount of people use Edge. But Edge is just a browser like Chrome. Just think of it that way. But the interesting thing is recently Microsoft incorporated a chat feature into Edge, which allows you to do almost like a search, but a super duper search on steroids. So it's interactive, and I'll show you what I mean. So you can do your usual search with Bing. That's the equivalent of Google. So if I go into here, but it's so much more than that because you've got an AI behind it all now. You can almost talk to it like an actual person. So rather than doing traditionally a search in Google, and you might get 10 answers, and maybe one of those is relevant, maybe not, and you got to do a fresh new search, you can actually refine your search from here, or refine your results. So I'll just type something off the top of my head, I guess, since we're here. How do I become a successful YouTuber? Like that. This is using Bing. So see on the left here, it's given me a bunch of results. There's some really helpful videos from actual YouTubers as well. But if I look onto this chat tab here, it will actually, now the AI will respond to it. And this is where it becomes interesting. It'll be like an actual person answering my question. It'll take a lot of the information that's available on the internet and it'll summarize it. So that the AI is a lot more intelligent rather than just a dumb search. This will, oh, my head is in the way. Actually, I'll scroll up a little bit. But I've just typed in how do I become a successful YouTuber. I'll try and move my head out of the way. So it says, hello, this is Bing. I can help you with some tips on how to become a successful YouTuber. According to variable sources, and you can see there my mouse over, I can click on that. And there's lots of other links here as well from other people. But it's just summarized it all. It's almost like a person, you had a personal assistant, and they just summarized all of the information for you. So some of the common steps are, pick a niche that you are passionate about and have expertise in. Be consistent and authentic with your content and upload schedule, so just do it regularly. Engage with your audience and collaborate with other YouTubers. Optimize your videos for SEO, which stands for search engine optimization, and promote them on other platforms. It says, what are you interested? So what are you interested in? What kind of niche are you interested in? So you can see there down the bottom, there's a couple of different things that you can pick from. So I could just click on one of these and it'll tell me more, but I can say, I want to be a famous video game. Oh, let's just make this interesting. Board game YouTuber. And so it's like I'm talking to a person. You can see that it's given me, I've asked a question, it's given me a response. I've asked a follow-up question. So it's just thinking. It's just thinking. You can see there I can hit responding just to stop it. But it's now, this is a bit, I'm going to see if I can push this up. You can see the previous one now, but I'll read a little bit. It says, this is a very interesting niche. Board games are fun and popular among many people. There are some successful board game YouTubers, and again, I've moused over it. It's showing me a link to who, the Board Game Garden, Blame Society, Board Game Co. I might actually check some of these out. These look pretty interesting. I've never heard of them before. They have different styles and formats for their videos, such as lists, reviews, chats, tips, etc. What kind of board games do you play? So I can say Dungeons and Dragons. So it's like I'm having a chat with an actual person. Now, you may have seen this sort of thing before with chatbots on different websites, so that you don't have to actually call certain companies. They have a chatbot for real basic questions and things. But this is a whole different category. I mean, you can ask some really specific questions here. So it says Dungeons & Dragons, a classic role-playing game, and now it's talked about these Dungeons & Dragons YouTubers, and it's given me, oh, look at this, the official, for more examples, there's an official channel of the game called Dungeons & Dragons Honor Amongst Thieves, which is a movie that's going to be coming out in the next couple of months, which looks very cool. So you can see each of these responses is based on all the other stuff that I asked ahead of time. So Bing now has a huge advantage over Google potentially, because the way you interact with search is amazing. So how can we use this as game developers? Well, one of the main things is, rather than just ask, oh, how do I do this and how do I do that, and you get a shotgun blast of sometimes random answers. Now you can get really fine-tuned responses. And if it's not quite what you want, you can still ask, oh, make it a little bit more like this, make it a little bit more like that, like you're talking to a real person. So we can learn coding, we can learn how to do art, we can learn how to do anything very quickly from an educational standpoint. And remember, this is summarizing a bunch of information from the internet. So it's probably getting it from a lot of popular sources. So usually we would have to do that ourselves. So we don't. It's almost like we have a personal assistant. So there is a wait list, as far as I understand, at the moment, but it'll probably be widely available at some point quite soon. I wanted to talk about ChatGPT 3 next. You may have heard of this in different places. The news has been covering a lot of this. from a educational standpoint, there's been a bit of uh, guess a few issues with people or students using this to write entire essays for their school. So that's probably not such a great thing to do, but it just shows the power of this tool. So it's a chat tool a little bit like Bing that I just showed you just now, but it's incredibly versatile. Again, you can type in any kind of question you could possibly want to know, and ChatGPT 3 will give you an answer. But the scope is huge. It's not just like a regular chatbot. The information is historical though, so from what I understand, it's from a certain date range. I can't remember exactly when, but it goes up to about sort of late 2022, I think. It may have been added to since I last looked it up. Not entirely sure. But you can ask it a bunch of different things. It's absolutely amazing. So again, I'll limit it to the game development to make it a bit easier to explain this. But I'll just show you a little bit about this first. So even this talk today that I'm giving you, I typed it into ChatGPT 3. I said, write me some bullet points for a script for an educational YouTube video that does an introductory talk about DALL-E 2, Midjourney, and Stable Diffusion. And there we go. Like magic, it wrote it all out, a bunch of bullet points. And I've used some of these to basically inspire my talk for today. I didn't use them all exactly as they are because I like freestyling it a little bit. But conceivably, you could use I could have used this and just read it out line by line. And ChatGPT 3 did that for me. And then just like with Bing, I said, write a similar document, but do it for Bing and ChatGPT 3. So I did it for this talk, the one I'm doing right now. and I asked it to explain how it can help with education and a bunch of other stuff. And then I said, write me an outro, so a final a bit to end this video today about how AI can change education and the workplace in the next 10 years. You see, even I'm using this for this very video that I'm doing right now. I said, make this, wrote out some nice stuff there, which is really cool, really useful. I said, change this to bullet points. So, and it did, which is really cool, because I don't like usually reading out line by line anyway. It's a habit from public speaking. I'd rather get bullet points, and then I can kind of freestyle some of it. So you can do all sorts of things. I've used this to write a very simple story for a game that I made. I've also told it to write some stuff for some ads and things for also for the game. But where it got very interesting for me is I got it to actually write some code for a video game that I just made recently. Um, so I used it for several scripts. So remember, scripts control what happens inside the game itself. So it's just like a list of instructions for the computer to tell all the different player objects, all the enemies and things what to do. But one of the interesting things that I did was I wrote down, write code for an upgrade manager in Unity C# where the player can select from 3 upgrades at the end of the level. So the game I made was basically a wave-based shooter. It's a VR game, so the player holds 2 guns and they just shoot at spaceships that fly past them. And so you get so many for a particular level. When you blow them all up, the level is finished and a screen comes up that says pick from 3 upgrades. So it might make your gun shoot faster, it might make the damage higher, might make the bullets fly faster. Could be stuff like that. So I said, write me an upgrade manager that will do that. And I said the 3 upgrades are randomly drawn from a pool of 7 power-ups, which are defined in an array of strings. So an array is just basically think of it as a list, and the buttons are specified in the script from the existing UI. So there's actually buttons on the screen that I made already. So I said just you need to point to those things. So here it did. Within a few minutes, maybe 2 minutes, it wrote this whole thing, and effectively I could copy and paste that straight into Unity, and it would actually work. And not only did it write this out with lovely comments describing exactly how it actually did it, it actually gave me a description at the end here saying exactly how the script put the script together and its reasoning, almost like a teacher. So it said modify the code so the player will only have unique power-up choices. So you can't get like 2 damage ups or 3 damage ups. You only get 1 damage up, 1 type of each out of those 3 that you get. And I'll show you this next time in the actual game as well. So it did that as well, did the next bit of code. So add to the code above so that the sprites corresponding to the upgrade will be assigned to 3 images on the UI. So basically had 3 power-up icons I generated from Midjourney, the other art tool that I showed you just now, and I wanted it to put one of those images up for the buttons. So I had some really cool images, which I'll also show you next time. And then a bunch of stuff. So on and so forth. I keep going, keep going. So yeah, change it, just adjust it, make this little change, make this little change, make this little change, and eventually what it actually put together, I could copy and paste exactly into Unity, and it worked perfectly. Now, why this is so interesting is because it saved me having to do it. If I had to create this upgrade manager script in C# myself, I would have probably taken me about between 2 to 4 days. It would have been buggy. I would have had to go back and fix it, and it probably wouldn't have been very good. So doing it through here is not always perfect, but it's a lot better than what I do. And what it allows me to do is to basically concentrate on design. I can get the AI to write the coding, to actually do the grunt work, if you like. This probably took me a couple of hours. So that's a saving. So that went down from 2 to 4 days to about 2 hours. So that's a massive saving. And this is the kind of the thing across the board using AI for the art and all the other stuff. Not only did I save time, but I saved a bit of money. So the art that I created using Midjourney would have costed me a few $100s on Fiverr. And the art isn't perfect, but it looked pretty good. So I'll show you that next time as well. Right, so those are some of the tools. Really quick, rapid fire overview. This is the Midjourney main website. It's if you want to actually use it yourself, you can register there. Remember, you need the chat program called Discord to be able to use it, so you need those two. Again, we won't talk about it today, but I'll show you step by step in future. But yeah, so you can see there, that's just a quick sneak peek as to the kinds of tools that are out there. A lot of them are completely free as well. But it's exciting for game development because it allowed me personally to make a game in about probably 4 weeks that would have normally taken me. So that's about a month. It took me about a month to make a game, a really simple shooting game for VR. That would have taken me between 3 to 4 months. So it made it three to four times faster. So it's pretty amazing. But even beyond game development, you can see here just a bit of the glimpse. But if you've got a machine that is almost like magic, that can answer any question you could throw at it. When you're at work, if you're a lawyer or a doctor or something, you imagine just typing any kind of question into a machine, and it will spit it back out for you. Which then begs the question: why is the lawyer needed? Why is the doctor needed for certain things? You know, they can be then specialized into doing really the most important things, but the day-to-day stuff they wouldn't have to do anymore. So if this makes our lives a lot easier and there's no longer a need to do a lot of manual stuff, what does that mean for the future? What does that mean for education, for example? What it could mean is that you could effectively, if you're at school and you're a student, it's no longer one teacher teaching 30 students. It could be the AI teaches you, and it's like a one-on-one the entire time you're at school. So, oh, I'm interested in learning about drawing. I like oil painting. And computer will say, well, what do you like about oil painting? This is what we've got here. And you say, yeah, I like doing this particular part of oil painting, and it'll teach you that specifically. So it can really guide you almost like a one-on-one tutor. And potentially you could go in any direction. Maybe you were 6 years old and you love programming already for some reason, or like making games. It could probably get you started on that track. Well, will you like making games? Well, you need to be good at maths. You might need to learn a little bit of drawing. You might need to learn a bit of this. So highly customized education. And it can make it really fun for you rather than boring, the old school where a teacher would read out a book and say, okay, today we're learning about history, and here's what happened in 1902. Instead, the AI could even make it fun, like a game. Maybe it could be incorporated into a game type engine where you're playing a video game of 1902. You've got a VR headset on. You're walking through um, America 1902 or something, and you can see all these things, and the AI is teaching you. And if as you're responding or not responding. As you're finding stuff interesting, it'll probably go, oh, I see you like the cars back then. It'll tell you more about that. So everything will be super customized. So education could be so much more effective as well. But coming back to game development, that's super exciting. There's stuff that can help us right now already. I can imagine there'll be a time potentially, and if you like to watch sci-fi or read sci-fi books, you'll probably see there's a bunch of stories and things about where, similar to what I just showed you there, you could type something in or even just tell the computer and say, computer, I'd like to make a game that's virtual reality, that's based on a steampunk world. There's a raccoon as the main character. I have elemental powers like Avatar. You describe it and the computer will make it for you. So it could be as that's not completely far-fetched anymore. Like maybe even 5 years ago, you would have been like, that's just science fiction. But now seeing all of this technology, it's not so far-fetched. But the interesting thing about this too is with AI, that makes our regular work go faster. So the research and development goes faster. So it just gets faster and faster and faster and faster. There's something called the technological singularity you can check out at some point where it talks about that kind of theory. But anyway, yeah, I'll put together some videos about the specific ways I've used some of these tools to make games in future. But I hope that gave you a good overview in terms of what you can do right now. So even though I didn't show you exactly how to register on every website, every tool, you can figure it out pretty easily. But I will show you in future. So anyway, thanks for listening and hope to see you again soon.